if the original function is f(x) equals absolute value of x, you want to figure out the transformation of the original function to this transformed function, absolute value, negative x minus 3. You can follow the following orders. First, you can figure out the original function. Its graph should be like this. Domain should be x can be any real number, and the range, that you say, the y-coordinate should be greater than 0 or equal to 0. So the graph should be composed of two straight lines, but here 0, 0 should be the vertex. Okay, now you will find out the graph of this original function should be symmetrical over y-axis itself. Okay, first we need to reorganize the expression of this transform function like this. Okay, here we need to isolate negative 1. So inside the bracket, it should be x plus 3, right? Okay, according to the previous knowledge, we can figure out here, this is k equals negative 1. If k is a negative number, you need to reflect the original function's graph over y-axis, and you must transform the original function according to k before d, right? But the standard form of here, that you say minus d. So here the sign should be minus, but here it is plus. So we need to reorganize here plus to minus. Then the expression should be like this, x minus negative 3. Okay, now you can figure out here it is d equals negative 3. That you say, in the future you need to translate the graph to the left side because d is a negative number, so you need to translate the graph to the left side. Okay, now we must transform the original function according to this parameter, then transform the function according to this parameter. Okay, from this original function, we need to reflect this graph over y-axis. That is to say, if here it is x0, the new x on the transformed function should be here, that is to say, negative x0, but the y-coordinate should be kept unchanged. So this graph should be reflect over y-axis itself. That is to say, this branch should be reflected to this branch, and this branch should be reflected to this branch. That is to say, this function's reflection should be itself. Okay, so we can write it like this. F, it should be like this, negative x, right? This graph should be the graph of this function. Now, we need to transform this function according to this parameter. That is, d is a negative number, so we need to translate this graph to the left side by 3 units. Okay, this is the vertex, so you need to translate this vertex to the left side by 3 units, and every point on this function's graph should be translated to the left side by 3 units. At this point, it should be translated to the left side by 3 units. That is to say, the whole graph should be translated to the left side by 3 units. But for the graph, the shape should be kept unchanged. Okay, that is to say, the final graph should be like this. This function should be the final transform function that you say negative 1 x minus negative 3. Okay, and we have known this function is this function, and here it should be 3 units, so here it should be negative 3. In your mind, you need to know every point should be translated to the left side by 3 units, and this point it should be here, here. That you say this distance, this distance, this distance should be 3 units, 3 units, 3 units. Okay, so this is the final transformed function from the original function. But in your mind, you need to know, in fact, we have the step that you say we reflect the graph of this function over y-axis, but the reflected graph overlaps the original function's graph. Okay, the blue graph is just the transformed function's graph.